What's up everybody, Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. Today we're going to talk about what it really costs to breed reptiles. I don't have a snake in my hands, but I do have my iPad, so we can do some screen recording. We're going to dive into all the costs that you may or may not be thinking of. Things like animal acquisition, equipment, feeding, electric bill, marketing, and everything else I can think of in the course of this video, but the main primary points that I'm focused on as a reptile breeder from a business perspective. We're gonna do a little screen recording here, and then we're gonna show it up on the screen so you can see exactly what I'm going through. So let's dive into the actual cost of breeding a reptile and maintaining reptiles. We're gonna take this from the perspective of I'm brand new and I wanna get into breeding reptiles. So the first cost that we're gonna go over is the cost of the actual animals themselves. So the animals, in our situation, let's just say that we're gonna buy 10 of something. This could be boas, ball pythons, whatever it may be. So let's say we're gonna buy 10 animals, and our budget for those 10 animals is about $6,000. So right off the bat, doesn't need to be all at once, but we're gonna say $6,000 is our animal budget. We're gonna acquire that over the next 6 months. The next thing we need to consider are the caging and the different equipment. So we'll just say caging. And to keep things fair, we're gonna say we're gonna buy their adult cages right from the bat. Those cages, we need 10 cages. And we're gonna spend $300 per cage. And that's gonna cost us $3,000. So at this moment, just between animals and cages, we're around $9,000 right to start. And then let's take into things like the food. So this one's a little more complicated, but we're gonna break this down. Assuming we buy younger animals, let's say they're about 6 months old, we have about 3 years of feeding right from the start. So year one, we're gonna say we feed them weekly. So 52 weeks in a year, 52, times weeks, times 10 animals, times $1 per animal. And that gives us $520. And then year two, we're going to say there's 52 weeks, but now we're going to feed them bi-weekly. So what's that? That's 26 weeks times 10 animals. But we're going to also say that our food is a little bit more expensive, and we're going to do $2 per animal, which gives us about another $520. And then year three, we're going to say we're also going to feed, which let's just say 20 weeks. And our food price is going to go up a little bit, times 10 animals. And that's going to give us, let's say, $3 per animal. Different animals might be different feeding costs. For instance, bearded dragons, you may get more expensive, feed them more often. Things like ball pythons, sometimes you feed them weekly. But we're going to just take a boas as examples here. Let me just do boas. Boas as example. So you have 20 weeks times 10 animals. That's 200 times $3 an animal. If I did that math right, that's $600 per animal. So our all-in annual cost for that is, if I could add, I should be able to add here, but we have $1,680. So our feeding cost is $1,680. Then the next we're going to go for is, let's say, electricity. And we're going to use my current electricity rate. Your electricity rates are going to vary, but we're going to say on average, I'm going to have to get a calculator out for this one, but we're going to say on average, we're going to do 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And this is, I'll show you how to do this so you can figure out your own math. But you have 10 cents a kilowatt hour is your cost for electricity. And then you should be able to get this off your electric bill. But 10 cents a kilowatt hour times, we're going to just say each cage pulls 30 watts. And you're running it 24 hours a day, assuming you're using some type of a heat tape. times 24 hours per day. The engineer in me is coming out. Times 10 animals. Times 10 cages. So let's just do the math. We have 10 cents a kilowatt hour times 30 watts. This should be divided by 1,000 because there's 1,000 watts in a kilowatt. So let's see, I got to do my math here a little different. So we have 0.1 times 30 times 24 divided by 1,000 times 10 animals times 10 cages. That actually seems a little too cheap. I might have an error in that formula, but we're going to go with it. That's $72.72 per year. Let's just say times 3 years. That's 200 times 3 years. That's going to give us $218.16. So we're going to just round that to 220. So that's $220 in electric cost. So we have the animals, the caging, the food, the electricity, and we're going to throw in there miscellaneous. This is going to be things like your bedding, your miscellaneous water bowls, and other soft costs. So just do etc. And we're going to throw a number that over 3 years, let's just throw $500. It's probably low. So all of these combined is we have $6,000 for the animals. So let me write this out here. So we have $6,000 plus $3,000 for the caging plus $1,680 for your food plus $220 for your electrical plus $500 for miscellaneous. So we have $6,000 plus $3,000 plus $1,680 plus $220 plus $500. So your cost to get to breeding age on $6,000 worth of animals is $11,400. So $11,400 to buy 10 animals, cages, raise them up to adults, assuming you spend $6,000 on animals. Now you have 5 breeding pairs of something. If you're doing ball pythons, maybe the economics are different. Maybe you have 2 males and you have 8 females, whatever it may be, but you can break that down. The cost male to female should be about the same. So you're all in, let's just call it $11,500, $11,400 to get these animals to breeding age. So let's break it down a little bit more in terms of your return on investment. So let's just say that each one of these animals was $500. So $500 times another $500 animal. So, or I should say plus. So that gives you a pair that's worth about $1,000. And we're going to keep this simple and say these are price stable animals. So you have $1,000 into this pair and you're going to breed them, and let's just assume you're going to make 10 babies. So 10 babies, and each baby is worth $500. Times $500. So you're all in, you're going to make $5,000 on this litter. That doesn't take into account your marketing, because right now we're assuming you're starting up, your marketing costs are pretty low. Now's where your extra marketing is actually going to come in. You're going to have to pay for Morph Market accounts or websites and other things like that, which we can go down a whole other rabbit hole. But you have about $5,000 in animals right there, assuming you sell them for $500 a piece and you have 10 babies. So you can repeat that 5 more times 5 more pairings, assuming every pairing gives you a go. and now you have $25,000 off your initial $11,400 investment. 25,000. So your actual gain, your net profit, is going to be $13,600 off your initial investment that you put in. So you're more than doubling your money if you did it that way. The nice thing is the next year, you don't necessarily have all those costs, and we could go down the rabbit hole and expand out each one of these. This is assuming you get 10 babies for every perfect animal, but that's a perfect situation, assuming you're going to breed them year over year. So even if you have half of the litters, let's say you have 2 litters and the other 3 don't go, or you get slugs, you don't get the best luck, you're still going to be getting an almost initial return on your investment within 3 years or so. But the nice thing about the reptile breeding is this is where it starts, and this is where you can continue to compound that. This is using theoretical assumptions that you have $500 animals and there's no depreciation in the value of these animals. You're using animals that are price stable, bloods, albinos, and you're not adding value to say, I'm stacking combos and now I don't have a $5,000 single animal in this. This is purely assuming that I just have exactly what I made goes in and goes out almost the exact same way. So you can see there isn't a hugely profitable component or a business to get into. Where it does start to get profitable is when you can expand this and scale, and once you get past this initial startup cost. One thing I'm not calculating in here, which is definitely an important factor to consider, this $13,600 number looks great, but don't forget you have to feed each one of these babies. So assuming you have 50 babies times $1 a baby times 4 weeks a month means $200 in just feeding costs alone. And you need to figure out a place to house these. So make sure you put some money aside when you're starting to approach this period where I need to buy some cages. And the nice thing is that rack options for babies are usually pretty economical and inexpensive. Let's just say you need to spend another $1,000 or so on caging for the babies. It's hard to calculate out your actual profit and loss because you don't know how long you're going to be keeping these things. So you might have babies sticking around for at least a month because you need to get them established. Definitely do not try to shortcut this and sell them before they're established, or you're going to be dealing with a whole bunch of customer complaints and headaches, and you're going to not like your life at that point. So make sure that you are accounting for there's going to be a holding cost of at least $200 plus some babies that you need to house, and you need to buy the racks for all that. So how long you hold these babies for depends on where you price them. If you're trying to get maximum dollar versus undercut a little bit, there's all kinds of challenges with undercutting because year 2, which we'll go into in a minute, you're assuming you're going to continue to get that same value. If you start undercutting your pricing, you're going to make less profit on the back end, but you're also going to set yourself up for failure in future years where you have this massive depreciation and you set this business model where I'm going to be the discount person in the hobby. Sometimes that can work on a short scale, but long term, it's not very good for you as a breeder and a business because you can see these costs are not amazingly profitable, especially as you're starting to get this going. You might even be at a loss for a couple years, and that's okay as long as you have a plan to continuously stick to this and expand. And we'll get into year 2 and talk about this because year 2, you're going to have all this stuff set up. It's just assuming you sell all your babies. There are options like wholesaling your babies out. Generally, you're going to be getting 25 to 50 cents on the dollar. So a $500 baby might sell to a wholesaler for $125 to $250. These costs aren't going to apply apples to apples. It's every deal you negotiate. So this is all stuff to consider in the economics of breeding and how profitable you can become in the long run. I always encourage people to at least try selling the babies on their own, especially if you want to get this into a long-term business. If you purely just, I want to make baby boas, then that's a different business model. But this is assuming you want to turn this into a reptile breeding business or hobby that can generate income and pay for itself. Let's get back into diving into year 2. So let's just scroll up a little bit. As we mentioned, your feeding cost for year 3 is about $600. So let's repeat this model in year 2. Or I should say year 2 of breeding. Breeding year 2. And you make the same results. So you have the $600 cost to maintain, 600 minus another, let's just call it $80 for electricity. And let's say minus another $100 for bedding and miscellaneous stuff. Again, probably low. Let's change that to 200. 200. So you're into year 2 for about $880. So $880 for year 2, but you repeat the pairings again. 10 babies, $500 baby, assuming you get perfect results. You have $25,000 worth of babies. And then your costs are $880. So 25,000 minus $880, and it works out to be now next year, year 2, you're going to make a profit of $24,120. So you can see how this can start to compound with time. And again, assuming no depreciation, I can't emphasize that enough. Your $500 babies might only be selling for $350 or $300 by the time you breed. But regardless, this is math that you can apply, and you can continue to apply this year over year. You can bring new things into your breeding groups. You can reinvest into cages, which might be a whole separate video topic of when do you start reinvesting from your initial investment? When do you start expanding? But overall, within a couple years, you can easily get your return on investment back, and you can easily start making money to reinvest into caging, feeders, and this hobby can sustain itself, which I think is where a lot of people want to be with this, is they want to make sure that if they spend X amount of money, can I at least pay for my feeders? Can I at least get my initial money back? And you can see how this can easily start expanding into an actual business, assuming you scale from here. What I would personally do at this point is I would take this $24,000, and this isn't perfect because you're going to have to pay taxes on this profit, but you can take this, and let's say you take $5,000 or $10,000 from that year 2 profit, and you go buy more animals, more cages, you stock your freezers with freezers, maybe you buy with feeders, maybe you buy your own freezer, and now you invested that aspect into the business. If you are putting this as a business, this is all tax deductible, and these are write-offs. I'm not a tax attorney or an accountant, so please don't take this as gospel. Make sure you speak with a certified CPA and somebody who can advise you on how to do this properly. But even your initial animals could potentially be write-offs. It's just all about how you structure it right from day one. So make sure that if you are going to look at this purely from a business perspective, you speak with a CPA and you can maximize your tax deductions, but this can continue to be pretty profitable. This was starting with 10 animals, and this is assuming we keep 10 animals. Year over year, you're going to get a return somewhere between $10,000 to $25,000, and your costs start getting lower as you start expanding, as you get these economies of scale. Instead of me buying single bags of bedding or 5 at a time, you can buy pallets of bedding like I do. It brings your bedding costs significantly down. Instead of buying feeders from just some generic website, you're only getting a handful at a time. I'm buying literally thousands and thousands of dollars worth of feeders every year, multiple times a year, and that can offset my cost. So I'm not going to pay $3 for the feeders. I'm paying $1.50 for the feeders, or $2. Of course, costs of feeders go up. Costs of marketing, things like your Morph Market account. I think it's almost about $1,000 a year on my Morph Market. I have the videos in production, which help that marketing expense. So all of this stuff does start to add up and generate a deduction towards your bottom line. However, the big picture is if you're expanding and you're spending this money, it can continue to fuel that business so that you're getting a larger return on equity. Now, everything in mind is these are speaking about these animals purely as assets. I do want to let you know that, hey, there's easier businesses to get into if you just want assets. You need to enjoy the animals first. Make sure you're involved in what you're doing here. You like what you're doing, because this is not a landscaping business where you just don't feel like showing up one day. You need to make sure you can show up every day, just like any business. So if you're willing to work hard and really learn the math behind it, this could be a business, and you're passionate about animals, this could be a really good business for you to get involved in. You can see easily how this could replace or offset your income from work, and how much you need to offset or even retire from your day job. That's going to purely depend on you and your needs. If your aspirations are to buy a $10 million mansion in Fort Lauderdale, or it's probably more like $40 million now, this probably isn't a business that you are going to start and get into, because you can only push it so far. Now, you certainly could, but these expenses go way up. You now have marketing expenses. You now should have a YouTube channel, and you're going to be paying for production. You have to get away from I'm the self-employed business owner to I am now a business. Some great books I've read. Robert Kiyosaki has some excellent books. He wrote The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He has a nice series on business and entrepreneurship. I enjoy all this aspect of business. I am very business and economic focused, but it's something that as you continue to expand and go down this reptile rabbit hole, you can start small and grow from there. You don't need to jump right into a $100,000 investment. Don't get me wrong, $9,000 is a lot of money to shovel out at first, but this same business model can work even if you just have $1,000 and you only have 2 animals. You can apply this, you can scale it up, you can scale it down. You can go buy yourself a pair of corn snakes for probably $100 and keep them into, you know, some type of a self-made storage tote container enclosure that works really well for them. So your costs can go down if you get a little creative. Newspaper for bedding. There's no actual cost for bedding. So all of these are variables. This is just some type of a formula, template, and business model that you can apply to something that you may want to do as a passion business, a hobby business, or if you want to scale it to a full-time, replace your income business. It's all possible and feasible with this. If you want to learn more, we talk about this almost every community chat on my Patreon. Make sure you check that out. If you're looking for animals and breeding stock, check out my website. Till next video, let's keep it moving.